The strikes have already happened. Retaliation has followed. Now the conflict enters a more consequential phase, the decision window. In most regional escalations, the 72 hours following a major exchange are decisive. Not because fighting stops, but because interpretation begins. Leaders reassess what just occurred and begin recalculating exposure, risk, and trajectory. Was the last strike a warning, a limit test, or the beginning of something sustained? That distinction determines what happens next. During this window, governments are not reacting emotionally. They are measuring thresholds. They are studying responses. And they are deciding whether to signal restraint or prepare for expansion. Immediately after escalation, 3 parallel processes begin: operational reassessment, force redistribution, and strategic signaling. Operational reassessment measures actual damage. Force redistribution evaluates sustainability. Strategic signaling shapes perception beyond the battlefield. These processes unfold simultaneously and influence one another in real time. If perception diverges from reality, instability grows. When one side underestimates damage while the other overestimates intent, miscalculation risk increases sharply. Escalation rarely expands because actors seek total war. It expands when interpretation becomes distorted in compressed timeframes. Each actor now calculates capability and intent. Capability measures endurance, how long military and economic pressure can be maintained. Intent measures trajectory, whether the exchange was limited or preparatory. These calculations determine whether defensive posture remains reactive or shifts towards sustained readiness. History shows conflicts widen when defensive actions are interpreted as offensive positioning. Misinterpretation escalates faster than aggression. When ambiguity dominates assessment, escalation accelerates. And ambiguity thrives in the hours immediately following a strike, when information remains incomplete. Air defense systems operate under elevated tempo. Interceptors are finite. Radar cycles intensify. Command centers remain on continuous alert. Personnel fatigue compounds technical strain. Even without catastrophic impact, operational stress increases across layers of the defense network. Sustained readiness alters strategic tolerance. When systems are stretched, decision-makers become more sensitive to perceived threats. A radar anomaly or drone detection may be interpreted as deliberate escalation rather than noise. Stress changes judgment. Domestic political pressure also enters the equation. Leaders must signal resolve externally while maintaining stability internally. Public rhetoric shapes expectation. Once expectation hardens, flexibility narrows, and narrowed flexibility reduces off-ramps. Escalation is never purely military. It is psychological and political. If restraint appears weak, pressure builds for retaliation. When retaliation becomes politically necessary, de-escalation becomes strategically costly. Regional actors assess their own exposure. Allied militias calculate activation thresholds. Neighboring governments reinforce defensive posture. Naval patrol routes shift. Airspace surveillance expands. These adjustments rarely dominate headlines, yet they reshape containment geometry. Expansion often begins quietly. Movements accumulate. Defensive repositioning can be misread as preparatory escalation. In tightly linked theaters, movement itself becomes a signal. Energy markets respond before formal declarations occur. Insurance premiums increase. Shipping contracts adjust. Commodity traders hedge against uncertainty. Financial systems anticipate risk before governments acknowledge it. The Strait of Hormuz becomes more than geography. It becomes leverage. When leverage enters a crisis, strategic patience declines. Economic pressure accelerates political urgency. Behind the scenes, communication intensifies. Hotlines activate to prevent unintended clashes. Intelligence channels exchange warnings. Third-party mediators clarify red lines. Even adversaries maintain guarded dialogue. Public rhetoric may harden, but private communication rarely stops. If those channels remain intact, stabilization remains possible. If they close, miscalculation probability rises sharply. The most fragile moment in escalation is not impact, it is interpretation. If one side believes deterrence has been restored, while the other believes it has been weakened, response asymmetry emerges. Response asymmetry fuels cycles. Cycles compress time. Compressed time increases error. And error widens conflict beyond initial intent. Historical escalation models reveal consistent structure: demonstration, response, assessment, trajectory lock. We are inside the assessment phase. Trajectory lock occurs when both sides conclude that backing down carries greater costs than pushing forward. That conclusion is rarely declared. It is inferred through posture. The 72-hour window is not dramatic. It is disciplined. Small moves matter: a redeployment, a statement shift, a maritime inspection. These signals accumulate. Whether this stabilizes or expands depends on restraint, signaling clarity, and strategic patience. Escalation is not inevitable, but containment is never automatic. We will continue tracking every development. Stay with us.